development work. We do some idle site marketing for communities who are looking to, find uses for properties that have been vacant for extended periods of time. And we've, we work with industry groups through grants to advance marketing and industry-specific programs, sponsor events. We do a lot of marketing for talent attraction, business attraction, and that kind of thing. And obviously, we've got a lot of strategic partners. If you go to the next slide, we've got over 600 strategic partners across the state. We are a small piece in the economic development landscape of Wisconsin. We work with, obviously, workforce development and other state agencies. We work with local governments, chambers of commerce, regional economic development groups, industries, businesses, nonprofits, technical college and university systems. So we really work with a lot of other organizations in helping to provide economic development across the state. If we go to the next one, then. So Alex and I and Joey, who will also join kind of towards the end to outline our division. We're one of 4 outward-facing groups in the Department of WEDC. Business and Community Development is another group. Their focus is on traditional economic development and retention and attraction projects. That would be, manufacturing expansion, headquarters attraction and siting, all of those business-related and community-related economic development activities. The international group works exclusively on providing technical assistance and grants for businesses that are looking to expand internationally and helping them to, find those groups. We work with industries, that's our sector strategy division. They work exclusively with the industry associations to, find ways that we can work with the industries to expand their market share. So our division is the Division of Entrepreneurship and Innovation, and we're working exclusively with small businesses, early stage businesses. Our group tends to focus on high-tech startups and helping them attract financing. But we do have partners that we work with that are really focused on, all entrepreneurship and innovation companies. So all small businesses, all startups are, they do have assistance programs out there that we sponsor, and we, help to provide funding for and technical assistance. So if we go on, Alex is going to talk about some of the stuff that we're doing that's COVID specific, both state and federal, some local resources as well. We do have the Federal CARES Act was signed last Friday. We do have a little information on that, but really we're just learning about it ourselves. And so I would recommend that you, keep your eyes and ears to the ground. I think Generator is going to do some more detailed presentations on that at some point as well. So I'll leave it to Alex then to kind of dive into the COVID specific responses.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So a lot of you are probably familiar with the SBA disaster assistance funds. So they've been made available to Wisconsin businesses. They can be for up to $2 million, and they can be used to pay fixed debts, payroll, accounts payable, and other bills that otherwise couldn't be made because of the impact of COVID. The interest rate is 3.75% for small businesses without credit, and businesses that have credit available elsewhere are not eligible. And Generator has a very handy guide for applying for these loans. And there's also, the SBA offers webinars twice a day about the application process as well. You can go to the next slide, Lauren. And then another federal program is the U.S. Bartender National Charitable Foundation's Bartender Emergency Assistance Program. This provides emergency funding for bar industry staff who need financial support. So that's another program currently available. And then with the stimulus package, a lot of that is being kind of figured out right now. And once we get further guidance, we'll let you know specifically what that entails. You can go to the next slide. So the Wisconsin Small Business Development Center, the SBDC, is a partner of SBA. And they are working directly with businesses to help them apply for the SBA loans that we talked about. Other partners include WEDC, the Western Wisconsin Women's Business Center, SCORE, and the Veterans Business Outreach Center. And they are all also directly working with companies via phone calls and video chats to help them apply for these applications or these loans. And then Generator, like I said, also has a very handy step-by-step presentation that you should check out. And I believe there will also be webinars by Generator about how to apply for the SBA loans. So far the guidance we've had from SBA is to just make sure that you submit the application ASAP and make sure it's complete. When there are delays seen, it's usually because the application wasn't submitted completely. So there's follow-up that takes time after that. And the SBA advises to get those applications out as soon as you can, because while the line is long now, it's only going to get longer. And you can always request reconsideration if your application is denied. You can go to the next slide. So the fastest thing that we were able to do at WEDC was this SB 2020 program. This entails loans of up to 20 grand for existing loan clients of community development financial institutions, CDFIs. So it's fairly limited in scope. A business must already have a loan through a CDFI in order to be eligible for one of these. Funds from the SB 2020 program will be distributed by participating CDFIs to their current clients. And we are working to expand access to this funding through other programs and through more resources as they become available. So basically, I guess what we are advising so far is to contact your financial institution and your business partners and see what business adjustments can be made, being that this program so far is fairly limited. You can go to the next slide.
I think, if someone raised their hand, just go ahead and click on that again. If you have a question that you feel like we really can't move on, you know, I can let people ask. Okay.
We'll also have a question and answer session at the end of this.
Okay. So okay.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll have a long question and answer session.
Okay. Would you rather
save the questions?
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest. Thanks. So another resource is Kiva. Or, can you go to the slide before that? Yeah, the Kiva lending platform, which some of you are probably familiar with. It's a crowd lending platform. Provides 0% interest loans to small businesses through online lenders, local and global. So U.S. applicants for Kiva loan have access to the following expanded lending options in response to COVID. Expanded eligibility, larger loans than typically offered by Kiva, and a grace period of up to 6 months. And then there's also a potential 50% match up to $5,000 from WEDC for certain women, minority, and veteran-owned businesses. So you can go to kiva.org if you're interested in that. You can go to the next slide. And then one more Wisconsin resource is the Hmong Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce Emergency Loan Fund. They just announced a new emergency loan fund in response to COVID. They can be used for rent, payroll, and other fixed expenses. And the loans range from $5,000 to $10,000. You can go to the next slide. Right. So Joey, I think, is going to present the next ones. If his audio is working.
Let me see if I can unmute him. Okay, Joey, it looks like you should be able to speak now and be heard.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, so thanks for having us today. I'm going to go over so I guess kind of what we started with is Chris kind of gave an overview of WDC. Alex gave an overview of what we are doing, I guess, initially in response to COVID. I'm just going to give an overview for anyone on the call that might not know kind of what we do day to day, and I guess what we were doing kind of before COVID hit, what we're going to be doing, continue to be doing during, with the programs that we're assisting startups, ongoing, and what you'll be doing hopefully when this all passes. So if you want to go to the next slide, I can kind of just go over review the programs that Alex, Chris, and I manage on a day-to-day basis. So our programs are kind of set up in different ways. So we have a loan program, which is a venture debt fund called the Technology Development Loan Program, where we invest in early stage companies. We have a fund that will invest in nonprofit accelerators. So think, the generator, like the Music Tech Accelerator, be one of those. We have a seed fund program where we give money, again, to nonprofits, communities, universities, organizations like that, so they can have funds to seed to entrepreneurs as well. We have a matching grant program that will match up to companies that receive SBIR funding. And that program was created because the SBIR funding generally will not allow you to use the funding for business development costs. So our funding allows company to look at the business development aspects of their business plan versus where the SBIR funds will generally be targeted towards the research. And then we have a tax credit program where we provide tax credits to investors, to incent them to invest in early stage companies. So if you want to go to the next slide. I think, yeah, that will jump into that program. So that program is called the Qualified New Business Venture Program. Program is a little unique to what we do at WDC is because it is created by statute. As Chris mentioned earlier, we're set up as a quasi public agency, and due to that, a lot of the stuff we do is going to be set up via program guidelines versus statutory. But this is a statutory program. It was created in 2005. Thought process around it is we were seeing more and more technology-based companies, growth-based companies. We knew there was capital in Wisconsin, but how can we incent the capital to make investments into the risky early stage ventures? So this program was created. It's a 25% tax credit, and what it allows companies to do is they go to investors and trade cash for equity, and with that, the investors will get a 25% tax credit on that investment. So it's a way to kind of de-risk or incent the credit on the front end. The statute targets startup and emerging growth companies developing and commercializing new technologies. There's actually two credits. So one's targeted towards angel investors. That credit is only going to be useful for people with a Wisconsin liability. So that credit is non-refundable, non-transferable. And then there's a second credit that falls into the statutes that's targeted towards venture capital funds. And due to the makeup of how funds can generally be set up, They might not have, full LP base of, Wisconsin taxpayers. They could have foundations, other entities that can't use the tax credit. That credit is actually able to be sold, monetized. So there's a market out there where people are looking to buy credit. So that's our way to kind of work with the venture capital funds, whether they're in-state funds that have an LP base made up of investors that can't use the credit, or it's our way to try to incent out-of-state funds to look at Wisconsin opportunities. Credits. 3 million companies are allowed to issue up to 3 million in credits over the life of their certification. So can take up to 12 million in investment. Again, looking to target companies creating high wage, high skilled jobs. And there's certain industries that are actually called out within the statute that aren't applicable or aren't allowed. Again, we're looking for technology based companies. So they're listed on the screen. I won't name them all. Go to the next slide. Yeah, criteria. I guess this isn't, kind of other thing. This is kind of what the statute calls for. So to be eligible, you have to be engaged in developing an innovative product, whether that's a product, a process, or a service. It's a Wisconsin benefit, so you have to be headquartered in Wisconsin. So what we mean by that is kind of the majority of the management team headquarter functions in Wisconsin. We need 51% of your employees to be in the state, and that's based on both headcount and payroll. We have to define you as a early stage business or a startup. So we do that by determining if you have fewer than 100 employees and you haven't been in operation for more than 10 years. You have to, and another way we're looking at that is you have to be seeking equity financing and you haven't received financing more than $10 million at the life of your company. And you have to, we're looking for companies with high potential for job creation and capital investment in Wisconsin. Next slide. So yeah, that's the QNBV program. I guess I'll just, before I hop into the technology development loan program, kind of process if you're not certified or interested. The first would be to reach out to Chris, Alex, or myself with an overview of your business, like an exec summary or pitch deck, just so we can get an idea of what we're doing. Usually we'll set up a call or in normal times, a time to meet with the company. It's always nice to sit down for coffee or lunch or something like that, just to get a little more overview of what the company's doing. And make sure it's going to kind of meet the statutory requirements and give you an overview of our application process. So we'll then send you out the application and go through that process. It's generally about a 6-ish week process from the time we get the application to we get you certified. Really just kind of a queuing aspect of what we're doing at WEDC. And then the other, I think, important thing to mention is you have to be certified in front of the equity investment for that investment to be eligible for the credit. Technology development loan program, similar qualification to QNBV, targeting the same type of companies. And really what this fund does is it allows us to participate in those funding rounds you're incenting with the tax credit. So we do loans of $100,000 to $750,000. We're going to stage that based on stage of business. So pre-revenue companies, we can do up to 250. Once you do have revenue, we can do up to 500. In growth stage companies where that hockey stick is formed, we can do up to 750. The other unique aspect of the program is we're going to be about 20 to 25% of the round. So we're not looking to fund the whole funding round. We want to tie our investment to outside validation. So for every dollar we put in, we want to see $4 a match. So for instance, if you're looking for to raise a round of 500,000, we would participate potentially at 100. You would raise 400 from outside investors, and then to close out that $500,000 round. So really looking to make this kind of gap financing to kind of close the round out. Right now we have just over 100 active loans. Like I said, do it as a debt investment. Generally, we'll look for a small portion of the loan to be covered by some upside with warrants on equity. Repayment terms will kind of be set based on looking at the business. Next slide. And then I guess the last thing I'll talk about here quickly that's directly going to apply to companies. If you are a company out there that's received a grant from one of the federal funding agencies, either an SBIR or STTR grant, we do have this program that we've created or that we fund in partner with the Center for Technology Commercialization at the UW Extension, and it's match funding for SBIR research grants. So as I said earlier, that funding is to match into your grant that you receive from one of the federal funding agencies. And this funding is covering the key commercialization milestones that aren't funded by the federal award. So it's a highly competitive process. generally CTC will do 2 to 3 calls a year, so they'll kind of follow the school year. So they'll do one in the fall. They just did one here at the beginning of the year with the spring semester, and then depending on kind of where they are at the funding and if they have some funding left over, they'll do one for the summer. So kind of 3 application processes through the year. It matches 50% up to 75,000 for a phase 1 awardee and up to 100,000 for a phase 2 awardee. 70 or 50% or up to 100,000 for a phase 2 awardee. So again, highly competitive. Also kind of on the front end, when you do that first phase 1 award with CTC, they'll put you through a lean startup training to help you refine your business process and idea. So that is a program, again, targeted towards companies. We fund it, but it's administered by the CTC. Next slide. Yeah, and I think that's it. So I guess a couple things I'll mention before we can hop into question. So right now, as Alex had said earlier, we have a few things online with COVID-19, but as things evolve and we potentially, more funding comes online, either federally or, potentially the state giving us more funding, you can follow us on Twitter at WEDC News, where, our marketing team will be tweeting every resource out there. And we've also, our marketing team did a really good job of spinning up a resource page for the COVID-19 response. So that page is updated, as stuff come online. So probably at this point daily, it's going to have anything kind of federally on there, as well as anything from a state perspective that might come online. They'll be on there. So as Alex said, we're here, happy to answer any questions. Guess thanks Generator for having us. Happy to show what we have going on, and thanks for joining. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. That was really helpful, and I appreciate the breadth that you covered. So we do have a couple of questions come through. One person is saying that they applied for the SBA disaster loan and didn't notice that if there was a section where you request a certain amount, and they didn't get a confirmation that they applied. So they're wondering about that, and maybe I'll let you answer that part and then maybe get to the second part of the question next.
Can I answer? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So this is Chris, and so there should be an acknowledgement within a few days of receiving an application that they've received it. I would expect that there would be some delays as they, get through their queue to review it, but I would expect an acknowledgement. Let me see. What was the first part? Disaster loan.
The amount that you can.
Oh, the amount. Yes. So I did a online presentation, or I reviewed an online presentation by the SBA. So they're not seeking an amount in the request. So that's absolutely appropriate that you would not fill in an amount that you're requesting. What they'll do is they'll do a calculation based on, whatever factors that they're using to calculate what they would expect, payroll and, other critical expenses to be over the next probably 3 months. So they're going to calculate that on their end based on the information that you've submitted.
Thank you. So, and for all attendees, there is a Q&A button on your little menu bar right next to where you mute yourself and see all the different options. So you can type your question directly into that Q&A box. So let's see, the second part of the question. Oh, okay. So at the beginning of the presentation, I believe Alex said if you have access to loan somewhere else that you're not eligible for this one. So I think this person is asking about that. They said, is it right that if I have access to capital, they won't grant me a loan, i.e. home equity, life insurance? So they're trying to figure out, if they won't have an income from their business over the next few months, what are their options there?
Yeah, again, I'll speak to this. I believe they've suspended that requirement. That is a traditional SBA disaster requirement. I believe they've suspended that in this instance.
Okay.
So you don't have to, you can get an SBA disaster loan for the COVID-19 disaster, even though you might have access to capital elsewhere.
But I would just top in quick. I would encourage anyone, like Chris said, I watched a webinar as well. So I think it's 10 and 2 every day. The SBA is doing webinars on the disaster funding. I would encourage you to take the hour to listen. It was, a lot of information on there. So.
Okay. The next question is about tech entrepreneurs. So the person is saying that perhaps the Kiva loans, tax credits, and the other options that were discussed are not really for tech entrepreneurs. So they wanted to know if there's anything else from Wisconsin that is directly applicable to the people in the tech industry.
Yeah, so I guess I'll hop in here because this is Joey again. So I know Joe. I don't know if Joe's on here from Generator, but I was on a panel last week with Joe from Generator, a bunch of other people in the tech community, and they encouraged every tech company to apply for the disaster funding as well. I know there's a few companies that we work with that have applied, and I've asked them to circle back with me to kind of let me know how that process goes, kind of what the SBA, what their feelings are about doing these loans for the tech-based companies. So I'm hoping once a few of those kind of get through the process and either get a loan or don't get a loan, we can have a little more information on kind of how that plays out. But like I said, from the tech community, from what I've heard, to start is apply. It doesn't hurt to apply. At least get your company in the queue and kind of let them decide if it's something they can do or can do not. I mean, I guess if any other resources are coming online, I think that's a little TBD. I guess what I can say from the WDC side is I know our CEO is on the cabinet. She's on probably multiple daily meetings with Governor Evers and the other cabinet secretaries. So I think they're looking at all options. I know, and this is just from me reading, in the news and the paper this morning, Governor Evers does have a bill that he's trying to get some support on. I think it was like $700 million in funding to do things in Wisconsin. My assumption is some of that funding would come to us. So I think, again, follow these couple of resources we have on here, because right now there's nothing specific out there. But from our end, obviously encourage you to do the SBA thing. But as more funding comes online, there could be something targeted towards the tech-based companies.
Yeah, this is Chris. I'm just going to add to that in that, I know one of the concerns with tech-based companies is collateral requirements and specifically loan guarantees. And from what I've read about the Federal CARES Act, those guarantees and collateral restrictions have been suspended for the current disaster funding. So SBA's collateral restrictions have been eased, and the personal guarantees for loans of less than $200,000 will likely be suspended.
Okay, so I see a question here that I think a lot of people may also be wondering. So if you apply for an SBA loan, are you committed to taking the loan if in the end you find you don't need it?
And the answer there is no. From what I understand, there is no requirement. They'll offer the loan, and there'll be a time period. I believe it's up to 3 to 6 months in which they'll have to actually take the loan. And if they don't take it, it's fine.
Okay,
There's
and
no
so
commitment.
Yeah, I heard the same thing that was on the call I was on. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So if people are looking for those SBA webinars that happen twice a day, where would they go to find those?
Yeah, I think if you go to, I'm just searching it out here. I think if you go to the Wisconsin SBA district office website, they should have it. Yeah, they should have it right on there.
Okay, well, we can include that. Perhaps we'll put that onto our.
I know Alex had sent our team something. So I guess if it's not on there, Alex can probably send it to you, Lauren, and I'm sure you can send it out to your group.
Sure. So somebody
I can send it to you. It's every day at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m.
Great. So somebody is asking, when might the 2020 program be expanded, and how many dollars have been distributed to date?
Yeah, so I think from what last update I had is, so how this is the 2020 is working is, first thing we have to do is the CDFIs had to apply to WEDC, and then we have to distribute the money out to the CDFIs. So last update I had was last week. They were getting, was the deadline for the CDFIs to say they wanted this funding, and then I'm guessing we're going to get that funding out pretty near term after that and kind of move from there. So to date, I'm assuming nothing has been sent out. And I guess when will more come on? I think it really depends on kind of what the governor, and the state government can get passed.
Okay, thanks. So if someone has two businesses, So one that's an LLC and one that's something else. So for example, this person's is a DBA, but registered as an LLC of its own. Do they apply, I'm guessing, for the SBA loan for each business separately or together? How do they manage that?
So this was a question that we had in the SBA presentation that I listened to as well, and they encouraged each loan to apply separately and to put in 2 applications for those businesses.
Great, thank you. Let's see. So someone's question is around the Kiva loan. So when you mentioned that for women and minority-owned businesses, you can obtain an additional $5,000. They're asking, is that additional to the $10,000 for $15,000 total, or how does that work?
Yeah, so my understanding is yes, it would be additional. And obviously it's conditional on meeting, you know, the certain requirements, but I believe that's additional to the $10,000 up to $10,000 Kiva loan. Now the way Kiva works though is, so you would go out and, you know, seek crowdfunding for those for whatever you're asking for. Say it's 10,000, and then you would have to get the support of the crowd to kick in to that loan. So even if you're asking for 10, you may not get that full 10. So we would still, you know, match whatever is received up to an additional 5.
Okay, let's see. Someone wants to know if the SBA disaster loan is the same as the SBA 7A loan guarantee program.
They are different. So the SBA 7A program is through your local banks. Some support 7A and some do not. But that is a guarantee of the bank loan that the banks are offering. So in the case, I live out in Mount Horeb, Western Dane. State Bank of Cross Plains is our local SBA lender. So State Bank of Cross Plains would offer a loan. They would go and apply for the 7A guarantee. And so with the disaster loans, you're applying directly to the SBA for those.
And I think then the guarantee is what, traditionally 75%, but I think they just upped it to 100 with the CARES Act, I believe. And
Correct.
I mean, the other couple things just to keep in mind is that we didn't mention as stuff's moving so fast, but you know, with the CARES Act, the one that was passed on, you know, Thursday, Friday by the Senate and the House, there's more things, you know, that have been added in there. So there was like a payroll protection program, a tax credit based on if you're not laying off employees, things like that. So there's going to be some other things coming online. So again, I would encourage you to go to this resource website or keep reading up on that. I don't have any info on like how you apply to those things because I don't think they've come out with that yet, but I'm guessing in the next few days there's going to be some guidance on how you apply to some of these other things. And with some of the stuff in the CARES Act, actually the loans can potentially become forgivable or in a sense turn into grants based on, you know, if you follow certain provisions. So
Okay, I'm going to continue with the questions, but I just want to remind people that we will be posting the webinar recordings online. We will also continue to be having office hours all week. So if you go back to the original email that we sent you about the program, there are links in that email to sign up for office hours, which would be a really good place for you to get some specific questions answered about your company. So you could give us kind of the layout of the land for what type of company you are running, and then we can go through some of the options that might work well for you. So let's see, somebody is asking, what is the guidance expected for the Federal Care Relief Act for small businesses?
Yeah, so that came out on Friday. You know, I will digest it at some point here, probably today, but I believe the real guidance will come either late today or, you know, within the next 2 days. I would expect somebody to go through, read through it, and provide some real guidance as to how each of these, because there's you know, multiple different sections to this. Somebody's going to come out and kind of break it up and say how we apply to each of these, and that'll be all posted on our website in the COVID resources.
Yeah,
That's
and I don't think the application processes are out there. You know, there's a lot of, I mean, if you just Google the CARES Act, I mean, there's a lot of good information that, you know, you can read up on it. But I think, yeah, right now, kind of the missing piece is they've kind of laid out what each section does for you, but you know, how you apply, I think that's, I'm still waiting. I haven't seen anything that tells you that yet.
That sounds in line with what we have too at Generator, and what we're advising people is really apply for the SBA right now. And there are some guesses out there that the rest of the CARES, like the paycheck protection, may go through SBA as well. So that would be how we'd advise people as well. Let's see, someone is asking a question about, so it's kind of like their situation is that they are self-employed, they're an S Corp, they have themselves on payroll, they don't have any major debt or anything, so they're wondering about solutions for missing income or paying themselves. I'm wondering if you have some kind of general advice about that, and otherwise I would direct that person to office hours as well.
Sure. So I'll kind of jump in here. So I would suggest, you know, check into the SBA program and see. I believe that should still be a fit there. If you're organized as a business, you should be able to access the SBA, you know, disaster loans and the programs that are available there. So you know, my recommendation is, you know, go there and see what they have. Keep an eye on our website to see if there's anything specific that Wisconsin comes up with that would also be applicable. Those would kind of be my two suggestions.
Okay, thank you. Oh, what about if someone has a virtual company and so their employees are in different places? They have 2 employees in Illinois, 2 in Wisconsin, they're incorporated in Iowa. What are they, you know, what is their likelihood to qualify as a Wisconsin company?
So it really depends on the program that they're looking to get involved in. If it's the federal programs, the SBA disaster loans, it doesn't matter where the employees are located. I would suggest that they, you know, go through the you know, the local application process wherever they're at, but the employees' location really shouldn't matter.
I mean, anything we do obviously is going to be targeted towards Wisconsin. You know, there's probably going to be some provisions in there that you have to have a certain, certain footprint in Wisconsin.
Also in the Q&A, I just typed in the links for the daily webinars for SBA. If anyone wants to look at that, I replied to a few of the questions with that. And again, Generator does have a very handy step-by-step presentation that's, I think, on their website.
Yeah, it was really good. That's one of the better ones I've seen. So kudos to whoever put that together.
So some people are interested in finding the resources that you referenced. Is there a place on your website that people would check out?
Yep, we do have a COVID page on our website.
I think no. So are they talking about probably like QNBV, TDL, things like that?
Possibly. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
So obviously, Alex, there is the COVID resource page, but if you are also interested in just kind of what we do in our division, so if you go to WEDC.org, across the top is entrepreneurs is listed. And if you click on entrepreneur programs, it's going to go over the few programs that I talked about in detail, as well as the ones I just briefly mentioned. So a lot of information on there. All the program guidelines are on there. I mean, anything that you could need to know is on there.
Okay. And you would apply for that directly through the website, correct?
Yeah.
And if you go to our website, at the very top, there's a ribbon that says click here for info and resources available for businesses affected by COVID-19. If you click that, you're taken to a page that has a lot of information we're saying. They do have the SBA loan webinar link on there as well, but FAQ about our 2020 program and other programs that we talked about in the CARES Act. So I would recommend looking at that page as well. And our Twitter, like we mentioned, we release new information on our Twitter as well.
Okay. Let me see. I'm looking through the questions. some more, and people want to know about, what about pre-revenue startups? Are there resources, are these all available to pre-revenue startups? Are there different resources available?
So I'll take part of this anyway. So our programs, WDC's, the QNBV program and the TDL program, are both available to pre-revenue startups. So those would be resources. Problem right now is the investment opportunities are limited. There's not a whole lot of investors who are jumping out and investing in a lot of companies in the last couple of weeks just because of the financial uncertainty. But in addition to that, I did talk to SBA about pre-revenue startups, and they encouraged everybody who's affected to apply for the disaster relief funding as well. So if you're pre-revenue, even the SBA disaster loans sounds like they are at least taking applications for those loans from pre-revenue startups.
Okay, thank you. Let me see. There was another question about pre-revenue, so I think we covered that. I'm just looking through to see. Can people use the funds from the emergency disaster loan for also to consolidate current debt or to finish an in-process expansion? Is that something that these funds are able to be used for?
So my understanding is the disaster loans can only be used for covering wages, covering rents, covering, basically essential bills, and cannot be used for expansions or anything like that. If there's expansion needs, I would encourage anybody who's trying to finish out an expansion to contact one of our regional account managers for whatever resources there are at WEDC or locally, and you can find those contacts on our webpage. There's a contact us page with a map that shows kind of who all of the regional account managers are out there. And what their contact information is. And they're going to really be able to connect you both with the local economic development folks and with WEDC to see what resources are out there for finishing out expansions that have been stalled by this.
Great. Okay. And so somebody asked about the loan term period. So I believe for the SBA, you can get up to a 30-year loan, and they're asking how long before they need to start paying off the loan, and how does forgiveness work?
Yeah, so forgiveness is something that was part of the CARES Act. Prior to that, there was no loan forgiveness, so that really needs to be researched as to how that applies and in what situations the forgiveness is being offered. As far as you said, the term was up to 30 years. What was the other part of the question? Sorry, I missed that part.
About forgiveness, the term, and how long until they need to pay it back.
How long? So my understanding is they're deferring payments for at least 6 months before repayment has to start.
Okay.
Yeah, and like Chris said, and I think that's a little like TBD, right? But the forgiveness aspects of the CARES Act, are they just going to roll that into this disaster loan stuff that's already out there, that's been out for a few weeks, or is it going to be kind of new application processes? But a lot of the forgiveness is around not reducing employees and things like that. So.
Okay. And someone is asking about the SBA disaster webinars. Would that cover the difference between the SBA loan and the payroll protection plan, which, as this person understands, is money that doesn't need to be repaid? They're saying their organization already has a lot of loans, so would it be better for them to apply for the payroll protection plan instead?
Yeah, so when I listened to the webinar, it was last week, so the payroll protection wasn't passed, and so that wasn't discussed. I know someone did ask, like, hey, I heard there's, going to be potentially be grants or forgiveness in the new new legislation, and they kind of just punted it. My assumption is people are probably going to be asking a lot about that. So if you listen to now, it might be covered. But when I listened last week, it hadn't been passed, so it wasn't covered at that point.
Okay. What about someone who doesn't have employees but has contractors? How do these loans work for companies like in that situation?
So at this point, I can give my speculation, but you should really check into some of the SBA presentations for some of the specifics. My guess is if you don't have employees, you're probably not going to be eligible for some of the employee forgiveness provisions. I think there's other forgiveness provisions for interest, payments on mortgages, rent payments, utility payments. I believe all of that are conditions for forgiveness. So there might not be payroll forgiveness, but there might be other areas where you could get forgiveness. But my guess is if you don't have payroll, if you're using contract employees, you're probably not going to be eligible for that part of it, but you may be eligible for others.
Okay, so I know we have just a few minutes left here. We have a couple questions remaining. One is asking about real estate tax relief. So this is a business owner who owns small retail shopping centers containing restaurants and retail who are unable to pay rent. So they're trying to figure out what resources there are for commercial landlords.
And unfortunately, I don't know enough about that part to be able to provide a response. I can check into that one specifically if you can send me a specific email. I think my contact information will be shared. I can check into that and see if there's any specific resources that I can point you to.
Thank you for that. Yes, and if that that person wants to sign up for office hours as well, that would be a good time for us to dive into more specific situations like that. So kind of maybe we can end on this little bit broader note. Someone's wondering, kind of comparing, excuse me, comparing this to the last recession situation that we were in. How do companies, really stay resilient and have confidence in these types of programs? And, do we have any answers on what types of demand these programs are getting? I don't know if you have something you can say to address that.
I'll touch on it a little bit. The demand here is extreme. In my, almost 20 years in the Department of Commerce and now WEDC, I have not seen demand like this, even in a recession. So I would say the demand is acute and extreme. As far as advice, I would say, given some of the stuff that's happened in the last couple of recessions, really tightening the belt and, understanding that, outside of, some of these resources from, the state and federal government and even the local government, if they have the ability to do it, investors are really, skittish in these situations. And so finding especially equity investment at this point is going to be extremely difficult. Getting banks to do loans that are not specifically, federally backed with guarantees might be a challenge. And so understanding that, retracting and controlling expenses is going to be critical at this point.
Okay, great. Well, I think that is all of the Q&A that I have seen come through. So thank you very, very much for this presentation. It was extremely informative and helpful, even on my end, to hear all of this and to see all of the questions answered. So thank you. We really appreciate it. We'll make sure to share your contact information and the presentation as well on our website. And again, just one more reminder to people to sign up to office hours. You can look at that email that we sent you originally, or you can reach out to any of us, we're first name at generator.com. So for example, I'm Lauren at generator.com. You can also reach out to Charmise or Baz at generator.com to ask any questions or sign up for office hours. So thanks again to our panelists, and we'll see you all soon.
Thanks for having us.
Yep,
Like Lauren said, reach out if you have questions. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.